Hi everyone. Today I'm going to demo how to do a set-in pocket. Now, set-in pocket is the type of pocket you typically see on a pair of jeans or in the front on the pair of jeans or a pair of pants or something like that. Okay, so we have a few pieces here. We have the front of the pant or skirt, be the same thing. So here's my center front waistline. This is the pocket opening and side seam. We have the pocket stay, or some people call this pocket back or backing. Okay, so this will be the back of the pocket. It actually fills in this part of the skirt. Right here is the pocket lining, which is obviously the lining of the pocket. And then here is interfacing for the skirt front. Okay, and this basically goes in right here where the pocket opening is on the front part of the skirt. All right, and why we interface this is because we're constantly putting things in, putting our hands in our pockets and taking things in and out. So it basically stabilizes this because there's a lot of wear and tear here. So it just makes it a little tougher. All right, so let's go ahead and start putting this together. We're going to start by interfacing our front pocket here. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll move these other things out of the way. Okay, as I said, we're going to start interfacing this by interfacing the pocket opening here. So here's the right side of the skirt front, and all the lines are on the right side, and the wrong side has nothing. So I'm going to flip it over to the wrong side here. I'll just turn it towards me. And then here's my fusible interfacing. Remember, on fusible interfacing, the rough side of it has the adhesive. So we're going to put that adhesive right against the wrong side of our garment. And now we can go ahead and cover that with a press cloth so we don't get any glue or adhesive on our iron. And then we're going to go ahead and press it. Okay, I like to start in the center and just kind of work my way out real quickly for the first go at it. And that kind of just gets everything stuck in place. Less chance of getting bubbles or anything in that interfacing. And now I'm just going to cover as much as I can with the iron. Put some pressure on it and pushing my iron down, and I'm going to hold it there for about 15 or 20 seconds. And I'm giving it a little bit of steam as well, and then I'm going to move off there and move to the next part and do the same thing until I've covered the whole piece of interfacing. That should be pretty good. Okay, so now that we've interface it, let's take a quick look. Now I like to just check the edge of my interfacing, make sure nothing's coming up. It looks pretty good, there's no bubbles in it. So now we've properly interfaced the front of our pants or skirt or whatever we're putting our pocket into. Okay. Now, on this template or pattern, I have a dart in here. We're going to ignore that for this demo, just because really it's about putting the pocket in. All right, but just know that before I put in the pocket or anything, my next step would be to sew my dart. All right, but again, we're not doing that for this demo. All right, so now that we've fused this, we're ready to start putting in our pocket lining. Okay, so here's my pocket lining. All right, this is the right side that has lines, markings on it, and then nothing on this side. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine. We're going to go ahead and stay stitch our waist, and we can stay stitch this pocket opening as well, and then we can go ahead and sew our pocket lining in. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. Okay, we're at the sewing machine now. I'm going to go ahead and stay stitch my waist at a 1/2 inch because that's what my seam allowance is. So let's go ahead and stay stitch that. Okay, there we are. And I'm also going to go ahead and stay stitch my pocket opening right here too in the front of the garment. And I'll do that at a 1/2 inch too because that's what my seam allowance is. There we go. All right, so now I've stay stitched my waist and my pocket opening. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pocket lining, all right, and here's the right side of my pocket lining, right side of my garment, pant front, and I'm going to put right sides together, lining up these curved edges. So let's go ahead and do that. And if it's helpful, you can put a couple pins in here. You don't have to. And I'm going to sew these together at a 1/2 inch. And this is a permanent seam, so make sure you back tack at the beginning and end. There we go. Alright, so now it's been sewn together, right sides together, pocket lining to garment front. Alright, now because this is a curve and we need to flip this pocket lining to the inside of the garment eventually, what we need to do is clip in here, which will allow this curve to open up when we flip this around to the other side. Okay, so we're going to clip about every ½ inch or so. We're going to clip right down to our stitching line, but not through it, and we'll clip right through that curve, like so. And there we are. Alright, so I've clipped this curve all the way through. This will make it easier to fold it over, and so that this can sit nicer and curve out in the opposite direction. One more thing we need to do is we need to understitch. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to flip this pocket lining up like this, and we're going to understitch about a 1/16 of an inch away from the seam I just sewed on the pocket lining. So very close to that seam that we just sewed on the pocket lining, we're going to understitch. And when we do that, we're going to catch all the seam allowance in that row of stitching as well. So the seam allowance from the pant front and from the lining, we're going to catch it there. Okay? And again, this will help that lining fold to the back nicely, and then it will help keep it there in place. Alright, so again, I'm going to understitch this, and again, I'm going to do it about a 1/16 of an inch away from that row of stitching, or from the seam I just made. I'm going to back tack beginning and end. Here we go. And when I'm doing this, I'm pulling the garment front and the lining in two opposite directions, so I get a nice tight clean seam there. And I'm going to have to keep checking to make sure that none of this seam allowance I clipped flips underneath it. Okay, we want to make sure it's all pressed towards the lining, okay, when we do this. So let's go ahead. Again, I'm pulling the lining and the pant front opposite directions, giving myself that, making that seam nice and tight and clean. Okay, almost to the end. There we go. Back tack there. And there we are. We've now understitched the pocket lining. Okay, and here it is a little closer up. You can see what that understitching looks like. Alright, let's go ahead back to the cutting table. Alright, we're back at the cutting table, and this is what I have so far. I've sewn my lining on and I've understitched it. Now what we're going to do is fold that lining back to the wrong side, like so. And if we did it correctly, it should pull over, and you might have to manipulate it a little bit. It should pull over about a 1/16 of an inch of that fashion fabric to the back, and it'll give you a nice clean edge. Okay, so if we've clipped correctly and understitched correctly, this will lay back very nicely, and we can give it a good press. I'm not sure if you can see through this muslin, but you can kind of see, if you can see through it, you should be able to see the seam allowance kind of pulling away where I clipped. Okay, again, that's why we did that clipping, so that it can roll back and sit nicely. Okay, and it's not pulling on itself. Alright, let's give this a quick press flat from the wrong side, right along that seam. There we go. Alright, so that's laying nice and flat, and it's pulled back about a 1/16 of an inch of the fashion fabric with it. I don't know if you can see the little red lines from the right side of the fashion fabric. And if I flip it over, it's given us a nice clean opening here, pocket opening in the front. All right. So let's go ahead and attach the pocket stay now. So here's the wrong side, or the inside of the garment. All right. Here's the right side of the lining. Okay. And here's my pocket stay. All right. The pocket stay should be a little smaller than the rest of the garment if you added these into your pocket opening. And you'll see if I line up this edge right here of my pocket stay with the edge of the pocket lining, like so, okay, and we come over here to side seam, you'll notice that my side seam is about 1/4 of an inch bigger than where the pocket stay stops, okay? And if you did that, that's correct, all right? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and stitch this pocket stay on, all right? And we're just stitching it to the lining, all right? So you'll notice I've put right sides together. Here's the right side of my pocket stay, the right side of my lining. I'm going to go ahead and lay it right on there, like so. And then I'm going to stitch, I'll separate it, okay, the lining and the pocket stay. I'll separate it from the rest of the garment. And I'll stitch right down here and then right up outside, okay? So let's go ahead and pin that together just to make it a little easier to stitch. And there we go, I've pinned it together. All right, so again, this is just the lining and the pocket stay that I've pinned right down this edge and out there, okay? And that's it. So let's go ahead and sew these. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and sew this. So this is my pocket lining that I have on top right here. It doesn't matter which side you really sew from. So we're going to sew this at 1/2 inch. This is permanent seam, so we're going to back tack at the beginning and the end. Here we go. And make sure you're only sewing the pocket lining and pocket stay. You don't want to get any of the garment stuck in there. And get towards the bottom here when I'm 1/2 inch away from this cut edge. I'm just going to go ahead and put my needle down, lift my foot up, turn the garment towards me, and then put my foot back down and continue stitching. And there we are. Okay, so I've now stitched my lining and pocket stay together. All right, let's go back to the ironing board. All right, we're almost done. We just have 2 more steps to do on this, okay? One note you might want to take is that if you wanted to overlock these or serge them, you could do that now, all right, before you went any further. Okay, so first thing we want to do is make sure that this stays lined up. Right now, this pocket back or pocket stay can pull away, and we can see the lining in there. We want it to stay flat like that. Okay, so we're actually going to stay stitch that in place. This is the rest of the waist of the pant or skirt, and we're going to end up stay stitching that. And when we stay stitch that, we'll just go overlap a little bit, and that will just kind of like lock that in place until we're ready to add a waistband or a facing or attach it to a bodice or whatever is happening to it. Okay, so I'm just going to put a pin in there, hold that in place, and then I'm going to come to side seam here. Okay, again, the side seam of my garment is about 1/4 of an inch bigger than the side seam of my pocket stay. Okay, and again, we did that because we built ease into this pocket stay. So when I bring this to match the side seam of the stay, you can see now how I have this extra room in here. So it makes it easier to get my hand in or put things in here that I want to store or whatever. Okay, a lot of times, and you'll see this mostly on women's clothing, women's jeans, they don't add this extra little bit of ease in Okay, so the pocket is very flat and it doesn't kind of stick out at the hips. So it's very flat like this, and it's hard to get your hand in there or put anything in there, okay? So on jeans and women's clothing, a lot of times they reduce that extra ease to reduce bulk in the area, and that's a lot of times why the lining of the pocket is so small, not very deep, like on menswear, okay? On menswear, they add the extra ease and they have deeper linings, okay? So let's go ahead and match up the skirt side seam with the pocket stay side seam. I'm just going to pull that over. Make sure it's laying nice and flat there at the side seam. And I'll put a pin or two in just to hold it in place. And there we go. Okay. So now that I've tacked it here and here, let's go back to the machine, and we're just going to stay stitch it here at the side seam. And again, I'm just going to stay stitch the rest of my waist, and then past, past an inch or two past my pocket opening, just to tack this in place. And that's what we're doing here. We're just tacking this in place until we're ready to sew our side seam or something like that. That way it's not moving all around on us. All right, so let's go to the sewing machine and do that. Okay, I'm going to start by tacking the side seam in place. So you can see here's my pocket opening, this is the side seam. And I'm just going to tack it for about, starting here at the bottom. If you flip it to the other side, that's where my pocket lining and stay end. So I'll start right there where they end, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch up about, an inch or so past the pocket opening right here. Okay, and again, this is just to hold it in place until you eventually sew your side seam or something like that. And you can stay stitch this actually at a quarter. We're not worried about anything stretching here. We're just going to hold it in place. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And now let's do the waist. We're going to go ahead and stay stitch this. This will do at a 1/2 inch because we don't want the waist of the pocket stay to stretch as we're sewing on the garment. And I'm just going to stay, if you can see through here, you can kind of see where the pocket stay and lining end. I'm just going to stay stitch, about a 1/2 inch past there, give or take. There we go. And now we can trim that. All right, let's go ahead back to the pattern table. All right, and there it is. The set-in pocket is totally done. Okay, so you can see where I stay stitched it or tacked it in place here at side seam, and then I stay stitched my pocket stay, and then went past a little bit where my pocket lining and stay ended, about a 1/2 inch or so to tack this down right here. And then that has given us our set-in pocket. So there's the front of it, and then this is the inside. Let's see what it looks like. There's our interfacing, there's the seam we clipped. All right, and now it's ready for use. Go ahead and put your hand in there, whatever. And that is how you do a set-in pocket. All right, everyone, I hope this helps, and I will see you later.